The Carter family, America's wealthiest bloodline with 8 generations of single-son inheritance, posted a wild recruitment ad that blew up overnight. Hiring a daughter-in-law. $3 million for every baby boy, $2 million for every baby girl. Just give birth, we'll cover the rest. I nearly dropped my phone from excitement. Are you kidding me? That's not a job posting. That's the jackpot. I applied immediately, made it through every round, and beat out thousands of hopefuls to become the chosen one. When I got the offer letter, I called my mom with shaking hands. Mom, I did it. We're gonna be rich. Her voice came through the phone calm, but proud. Mia, good. Just don't let them bankrupt you first. She wasn't joking. My family's been blessed or cursed, depending on how you see it, with a rare genetic trait, hyperfertility. My grandmother had 10 kids. My mom had twins. And me? According to family tradition, I'm on track for at least triplets, possibly more. Mom always told me, if you're going to get pregnant like it's your superpower, at least pick a guy who's handsome and rich. That way the babies are cute and have a safety net. I never forgot that. So I stayed single, waiting for the perfect candidate. And then boom, along came the Carters and their $3 million baby bonus. The job began with a lecture from the matriarch herself, Mrs. Helen Carter. Elegant, cold-eyed, and efficient, she laid it out. Our family line depends on you. If you can give birth, you'll get the payout and a marriage certificate. If not, you'll get a check for nutritional expenses and leave quietly. I saluted like I was signing up for the army. Don't worry, ma'am. I'll deliver. She actually looked impressed, then clapped her hands, and out came my future baby daddy, Ethan Carter. He was carried in by 8 bodyguards, red silk tied around his wrists like a decorative ribbon, and a face that screamed, "Kill me now." To be fair, he was insanely attractive, tall, lean, those perfectly messy eyebrows, a sculpted jaw, and abs that peeked out every time he shifted. If this were a different situation, I would have been thrilled. But right now, he was thrashing like a madman and yelling, "This is illegal. You can't just use me like a stud. I don't even like women. I want love. I want freedom." He was halfway to hoarse, and I was halfway to realizing why the Carters were hiring at such a premium. "Mrs. Carter whispered sadly, my son's gay, but I need an heir. He can like whoever he wants after he gives me a grandchild." Ethan shouted, "I'm not gay. Stop saying that." She just patted his shoulder sympathetically. "Sweetie, it's okay. She-males are people too. I respect your preferences." Ethan exploded. "Jesus, Mom. Stop assuming things." Mrs. Carter ignored him and turned to me. "This is Mia Sullivan, the mother of your future child. I know you have special preferences, but don't take it out on her. She's a good girl." Ethan rolled his eyes dramatically. "You can tie my body down, but my soul will resist forever." Mrs. Carter sighed. "Whatever. Just do your job." Then she gave me a look. "Can we make it happen tonight?" I glanced at him, tied up like a grumpy Greek god in distress. I nodded confidently. "Don't worry, ma'am. I'll get it done." Ethan stopped struggling just long enough to glance at me and immediately turned red. That night, they tied him to a California king bed in a soundproof room. I stood at the edge, cracking my knuckles like a boxer. I had never done this before, but hey, how hard could it be? He glared at me. "Do you have no shame?" I ignored the insult and asked professionally, "Do you have someone you like?" He paused. "Yeah, I do." That answer made me freeze mid-shirt removal.
"Oh."
I blinked, suddenly unsure.
"Well,
if you're in love, I won't force you." He gave me a side eye. "You already took your shirt off, didn't you?" I blushed. "Only halfway." Ethan sighed and muttered, "Just get it over with." I climbed onto the bed, awkward but determined. "If it hurts, let me know." He groaned. "Untie me, and I'll do it myself." "No way," I said, clutching the ropes. "You'll run. You look like a runner." After some fumbling and mutual embarrassment, I managed to figure things out. My body ached, My dignity was bruised, and somewhere in the middle of it all, Ethan flipped the switch, untied himself, and well, let's just say he took control. I blacked out before round 3. When I woke up, he was gone. I got a text. Had to rush to the office. Let me know if you need anything. What a gentleman. Still naked, still sore, I smiled like a woman who just earned her first million. Then my real job hit me like a brick. Chloe was calling, panicking about our meeting with Ocean View Corp. If we lose this contract, I'll sell your eggs myself, she shouted. I rushed to the office, 3 minutes late. Chloe glared at me like I'd cheated on her. Where the hell were you? Side gig, I mumbled. Paid better than Ocean View. Better than 5 million, she snapped. Try 40, I muttered. Her jaw dropped. Then suddenly, the elevator doors opened, and out came a man who made the entire lobby freeze. Ethan. In a sharp suit. Looking like a CEO who ate lesser execs for breakfast. Chloe perked up instantly. Mr. Carter, I'm Chloe from Starlight Creative. Please let me. Ethan walked right past her. I raised my hand timidly. Hey. He stopped dead. Turned. Flushed. Mia. Everyone stared at me like I'd just exposed an affair. Chloe's eyes bulged. You. Know him? You. Yeah. Ethan grabbed the proposal from my hand, didn't even read it, flipped to the signature page, signed, and handed it back. I'll wait for you at home. The entire office gasped. Chloe whispered, You witch. You stole the boss. I was mortified. She was gleeful. We're throwing a party tonight to celebrate. I tried to protest, but Ethan was already smirking. I love parties. Invite me. Chloe grinned. Yes, sir. I pulled her aside. Woman, you're playing with fire. She grinned wider. I'd light the whole place up for a sponsor like that. That night, we had hot pot on the sidewalk. Ethan sat beside me, too tall for the stool, his knee brushing mine every few seconds. Chloe kept trying to charm him. My old classmate Logan showed up too, clearly annoyed. Mia doesn't have a boyfriend, he said pointedly. Ethan raised an eyebrow and wrapped an arm around my shoulder. She does now. Logan scowled. She's been my closest friend for 4 years. Ethan didn't blink. And I've been in her bed since last night. Chloe whispered. This party just got wild. I wanted to disappear. Logan and Ethan stared each other down. I poked Chloe. Who even invites the sponsor to a hot pot stall? Ethan's idea, she whispered. Apparently he likes street food. Said it reminds him of something. Warm. Warm? The man was made of ice. I was still wondering what that meant when Ethan took my bowl and swapped out the sweet and sour pork. You're preparing for pregnancy. Don't eat greasy stuff. The table went dead silent. Chloe blinked. Wait. You two are married? Not married, I muttered. But we slept together. Chloe dropped her chopsticks. When? Yesterday. She screamed. What? You went into the adult industry for 40 million? Can you let me finish a sentence? The party ended in chaos. Ethan pulled me into his car, face stiff. Don't worry, I said. I take contracts seriously. I won't mess around. He turned sharply. Am I just a contract to you? A very lucrative one, I joked. Feelings cost extra. He glared. I don't need a contract to bind my heart. I huffed. You're mad now? After one night, he opened the door, shoved me in, and said, You drive. I'm walking. I don't know how to drive. Ethan paused, swore, then circled back and slammed into the driver's seat. Fine. I'll drive. You'll learn. You're not crying outside on my watch. When we got home, he stormed into the bedroom. I showered and crawled into bed next to him. Boss, I whispered. Have mercy. Ethan rolled over, pouting. Even if I die alone, I won't force someone who doesn't love me. You misunderstood, I whispered. There's no one else. He pulled the covers over my head. Then why won't you look at me? Because, I said, you like she-males. I'm not one. Should I go get surgery? Ethan groaned. Do you want to sleep or not? Not if you're confused about your orientation. I got out of bed dramatically. Mrs. Carter. He's not cooperating. 5 minutes later, 8 bodyguards came in with red silk and tied him to the bed again. He yelled, "Mia, you traitor." I smirked. Don't underestimate how far Party B will go to meet her deliverables. That night, I gave it everything I had. And maybe, just maybe, he started to fall for me. When I woke up, the sun was already high in the sky, and the red silk ropes that had tied Ethan to the bed last night were gone without a trace, leaving nothing but faint marks on the headboard and a vague soreness in my hips that reminded me this wasn't a dream job, it was just a very physical one, and apparently a high-stakes one too, because the man I conquered had vanished like a ghost, and all I got was a friend request and a message. Hey? I had to rush to the office urgent meeting. Call me if you need anything. How sweet, right? I sighed, brushed my hair out of my face, and stretched like a satisfied villainess in a drama until my phone exploded with a call from Chloe screaming bloody murder. Mia Sullivan, where the hell are you? We're meeting with Ocean View in 20 minutes. Do you want us to lose this $5 million contract? That jolted me harder than a triple espresso. I totally forgot I had a real job, and this part-time baby-making hustle had almost made me miss our company's biggest pitch ever. So I threw on clothes like my apartment was on fire and bolted out the door, praying to all the contract gods that I wouldn't mess up our entire agency over one very expensive hookup. But by the time I arrived, I was 3 minutes late, and the receptionist at Ocean View was built like a steel wall and a pencil skirt, completely unmoved by my tragic backstory. "Sorry, your appointment time has passed. Please reschedule." And Chloe looked at me like she wanted to slap me with our business license. "You better tell me what the hell you were doing last night that was more important than this." And I muttered, "I took a side gig." And she growled, "What kind of gig pays more than Ocean View's $5 million? And I mumbled, "A guaranteed 40. And before she could even scream again, the elevator doors opened and out stepped the man himself, Ethan Carter, sharp as ever in a tailored black suit, surrounded by assistants, with a face that said, "Don't talk to me unless you're worth 8 figures." And Chloe immediately transformed into a peacock in mating season, pushing me aside and strutting forward. "Mr. Carter, I'm Chloe Bennett from Starlight Creative. Please allow me to present." But Ethan walked straight past her like she was invisible and only stopped when he saw me awkwardly waving from behind the fake potted plant. And I swear the temperature in the room rose 10 degrees when our eyes met, because the moment I said, "Hey," he froze mid-step, flushed like a middle school crush, and said, "Mia," in this low voice that made every woman in the building stare at me like I'd just slept with a god, which technically I had. And then he walked straight up to me, took the proposal folder from my hands without even looking at the first page, flipped straight to the back, signed his name with a smooth flourish, handed it back, and whispered, "I'll wait for you at home," and just walked away, leaving a trail of stunned silence and gossip-hungry eyeballs behind him while Chloe stood there looking like she just witnessed the second coming. "Mia, are you serious? What are you, a witch? A honey trap?" And I wanted to disappear, but she clapped her hands. "That's Ituri throwing a party tonight to celebrate. You're inviting your man?" And I hissed, "He's not my man, he's my boss, kind of." And she grinned. "Even better." And of course Ethan accepted the invite like this was a company Christmas dinner and not a low-budget hot pot feast by the roadside, because that's where Chloe insisted we hold the celebration. "It's authentic," she said. "It'll humanize him." And there we were, 4 people squished around a wobbly table with Ethan's long legs invading my side like he was trying to play footsie with my soul. And just when I thought the night couldn't get weirder, Logan, yes, that Logan, my college senior, longtime friend, and semi-permanent emotional support human, showed up with a smug look that screamed territorial male alert. And he sat down across from Ethan with a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. "You must be Mia's friend?" And Ethan smiled back like a shark in a tux. "I'm whatever she wants me to be." And Chloe practically dropped her chopsticks, whispering, "This hot pot's boiling over," while Logan raised his eyebrows. Funny, she never mentioned a boyfriend, and Ethan didn't even flinch, just pulled me closer into his arms. "She's shy, doesn't talk about personal things to outsiders." And Logan scoffed. "Outsider? We've been friends for 4 years, and Ethan's eyes glinted. And I've been in her life for 4 nights, and trust me, I leave a stronger impression. And if tension had a scent, the table would have reeked of alpha rivalry and spicy broth, and I was just there, stuck between them, wondering when it became my thing to be the rope in a testosterone tug-of-war, and Chloe didn't help. She just leaned over with a skewer of sweet and sour pork and whispered, "So, Spillitho, did you snag Ethan freaking Carter?" But before I could say anything, Ethan reached over, took the pork from my bowl, and said softly, "You're preparing for pregnancy, you shouldn't eat greasy stuff." And that was if table went dead silent again. Chloe dropped her spoon, and Logan looked like he wanted to crawl under the table and scream. "You two are married?" Chloe asked, eyes wide, and I quickly said, "Not married, but we did sleep together." And Chloe shrieked, "When?" And I answered casually, "Yesterday." It was part of my new job, and that's when Chloe started choking on her dumpling and wheezed. "You what? You joined the adult industry?" And I facepalmed so hard I nearly knocked myself out. "No, I just listen, it's complicated, okay?" And the rest of the night was a blur of awkward small talk, side eyes, and Ethan watching me like I'd vanish if he blinked. And when we finally got into his car, I tried to smooth things over by saying, "Don't worry, Mr. Carter. I take contracts seriously. I'm not gonna fall in love or anything." And he turned to me with this expression that made me want to jump out of the car. "Is that all this is to you? A job? A contract? You think feelings cost extra?" And I blinked at him. Yes." And he scoffed, "Forget it." Then opened the door, walked out, and said, "You drive back. I need air." And I yelled after him, "I don't know how to drive." And he stomped back, opened my door, picked me up, threw me into the passenger seat like a grumpy action hero, slammed the door, muttered something about regretting everything, and drove us home in silence, which I didn't mind because honestly, I was still recovering from the night before. And once we got home, he stormed into the bedroom and I tiptoed in after him like a responsible employee ready to report for duty. "Boss, I'm back on shift." And he rolled his eyes and pulled the blanket over his face like a dramatic teenager. "Even if I never have a child, I won't force someone who doesn't care about me." And I blinked. "Are we talking about babies or feelings now?" And he sat up and pointed at me. You think I'm gay, you think I like she-males, you think I'm using you, but you never asked what I wanted." And I shrugged. "What do you want then, Mr. Carter?" And he took a deep breath, looked me dead in the eye, and said, I want you to have me in your heart." And I just stared at him, stunned, like, "Excuse me?" This was supposed to be a simple gig. Show up, get pregnant, get paid, walk away. When did emotions get added to the contract? I panicked, grabbed my phone, and called his mom like a tattletale. "Mrs. Carter, your son's refusing to cooperate." And 5 minutes later, the red silk was back, the bodyguards returned, and Ethan was strapped down like a very expensive sacrifice once again, yelling, "Mia, you traitor." This is psychological warfare, and I smirked. Don't underestimate a woman working on commission. And that night, I gave it everything I had again, and maybe, just maybe, we both stopped pretending this was only about money. The thing about sleeping with a man tied up in red silk for the second time in less than a week is that eventually, your body gives in but your brain refuses to shut up, especially when said man starts murmuring your name in his sleep like it's some sacred chant. And for a hot second I wondered if maybe I was reading into things, but the next morning when I woke up curled against his chest, legs tangled, heart thudding like a broken metronome, Ethan was already awake, staring at me with an unreadable expression on his face and eyes that looked like they'd stayed up all night thinking. And the moment I blinked and sat up, the spell broke. He jumped out of bed, pulled on his clothes like a man running from sin, and stormed out of the house without even a goodbye, which honestly would have stung more if I hadn't been so sore and emotionally confused, because one moment he's whispering about wanting me in his heart, and the next he's ghosting me like I'm a one-night stand he regrets. And to make things worse, he didn't call, text, or show up for 10 straight days, not even to check if I was still alive or if I'd spontaneously given birth to triplets overnight. And Mrs. Carter was spiraling hard. "Mia, this can't go on. I raised that boy. I know when he's self-sabotaging come with me to the office. We'll drag him back if we have to. And I was like, ma'am, I've already helped kidnap your son twice. If I show up at his office, we're all going to jail. But she wouldn't hear it. So I threw on a blazer over my guilt and marched into Carter Enterprises like I owned the place, only to be stopped at the front desk by a receptionist who gave me a sympathetic look that made my stomach twist. I'm sorry, mister. Carter is currently in a meeting with a very important guest, and I didn't even flinch. I just pulled out my phone, called Mrs. Carter on speaker, and she didn't even wait for me to speak, just said, "Get out of her way," and boom, the receptionist stepped aside like I was the freaking first lady, though I caught her texting someone immediately after. Girl, the baby mama just arrived. Office gossip incoming. When I finally reached the top floor and threw open the door to Ethan's office, I was fully prepared for a dramatic confrontation, maybe some dramatic lighting, maybe a bouquet of roses smashed on the ground, but what I got instead was a woman, or at least I thought she was a woman, sitting gracefully with her legs crossed, long wavy hair cascading down her shoulders, cheekbones that could slice glass, and a smile so dazzling I felt like I'd walked into a skincare commercial, and all I could manage was a breathless, "Hi, sister." And then she stood up, shook my hand with fingers softer than my own, and said in a voice that sounded like velvet rubbed on sandpaper, "Hello, little sister, I'm Avery Brooks." And just like that, all my organs collapsed inside me like deflated balloons because I was now 99% sure this was the Avery, the person Ethan was in love with, the one who made him scream about freedom and love and how he didn't like women, and I just stood there like an intruder who'd walked in on a wedding proposal, smiling and nodding like an idiot while my inside screamed, "Abort mission, abort mission. The real partner is here." And before I could melt into the floor, Avery gestured politely to the couch and said, "You must be here for Ethan. He should be back soon. He's just finishing a quick call." And I tried to breathe like a normal person, but my thoughts were racing faster than my pulse, and because I'm a nosy emotional wreck, I couldn't help myself. "So, how do you and Ethan know each other?" And Avery smiled wistfully. "We met years ago while studying abroad. We've been friends ever since. He always says I'm his only one," and I swear the sound of my heart breaking echoed louder than the AC, but I smiled through the pain like a good girl and stood up abruptly, bowing like an apologetic substitute. "I'm sorry. Truly. I didn't mean to come between you two." And Avery blinked. "Come between." But I was already out the door, sprinting down the hallway like I was being chased by all my terrible life choices, and I didn't stop until I reached Chloe's office, where I collapsed into her arms like a woman who'd just realized she was the villain in someone else's love story, and Chloe, bless her chaotic soul, just patted my back and said, "Okay, slow down. Mia, are you crying because you lost the $40 million or because you actually caught feelings?" And I hiccuped, "Both." And she sighed like a wise woman at the end of a soap opera. "Girl, you're in deep." And I couldn't even argue because she was right. I didn't just lose my payday. I lost whatever weird, broken thing Ethan and I were building, and that night I returned my contract to Mrs. Carter with shaky hands and a trembling voice. "Thank you for trusting me, but I'm not qualified for this role anymore." And she looked so heartbroken it made me want to cry again. "But Mia, you're the only one who could handle Ethan. I'll give you a raise, whatever you want." And I shook my head. "It's not about the money. He loves someone else, and I can't be the one who ruins that." And she let out the deepest sigh I've ever heard. So this is how the Carter line ends, not with a bang but with my son being a stubborn idiot. And as I left, she pressed a card into my hand. "Take this, it's the nutrition compensation we agreed on, you earned it." And I accepted it silently, officially ending my employment as the Carter family's reproductive contractor and returning to my tiny apartment with a heart heavier than my bank account. And just as I was trying to drown my emotions in microwaved mac and cheese, Chloe and Logan barged in with takeout and fake smiles and declared, "Tonight we celebrate your freedom, Mia. You escaped the billionaire baby trap." And I tried to fake a smile until the smell of the food hit me and I sprinted to the bathroom, gagging like I'd swallowed a whole bottle of regret, and Chloe followed me in and gasped, "Mia, are you pregnant?" And I counted backward in my head and nearly passed out when I realized probably, possibly, almost definitely yes. And Chloe looked torn between horror and excitement. Do we tell Ethan? And I shook my head violently. No. He loves Avery. If he finds out, he'll feel obligated, and I won't be that person. And Chloe nodded solemnly. Okay then. But if we're doing this, we're doing it together. This baby will be the most loved, well-fed, and overprotected human in history. And Logan poked his head in. Maybe the kid needs a father too? And I side-eyed him. Respectfully, you're disqualified. This baby doesn't come with a coupon for boyfriend perks. And he laughed nervously while Chloe smirked. He's been in love with you for years, you know. And I rolled my eyes. Then he should have said something before I signed a contract with the Billionaire. And we all laughed a little too hard and cried a little too much. And when I finally fell asleep, my phone buzzed with unread messages from Ethan. Mia, where are you? I'm not mad anymore. Please don't cancel the contract. Just tell me where you are. And I stared at the screen, my heart twisting, then turned it off and looked up at the stars from my balcony, whispering to the night sky, Ethan Carter, I hope you find whatever your heart truly wants, because even if it wasn't me, I knew I couldn't keep pretending I hadn't already fallen harder than I ever meant to. It had been almost a month since I walked away from the Carter mansion with a broken heart and a mysterious deposit growing inside me. And if anyone had told me back then that pregnancy was going to turn me into a nauseated, bloated, hormonal traveler of backroads and gas station bathrooms, I would have asked for hazard pay. But Chloe being Chloe insisted we go on a pre-birth soul-cleansing road trip, while the bump was still manageable, claiming we needed to create memories before I became a full-time mom and couldn't even pee alone anymore. And honestly, it didn't sound like a bad idea. So we packed up her car, convinced Logan to come along as backup driver, and began our slow escape across the country, stopping in every small town that had a cute cafe or a scenic overlook, sleeping at motels that smelled like expired air freshener, and laughing way too hard over gas station snacks and late-night ghost stories. And for a while, it almost worked. I almost forgot about Ethan, about the Carter family, about contracts and heartbreak and missed chances. But of course, life isn't a Netflix rom-com, and peace is always temporary. So naturally, just as we were standing in front of a wide stretch of painted sky in the Mojave Desert, watching the sunset turn everything gold and soft and unreal, a cloud of dust rolled in from the distance, and a familiar luxury SUV skidded to a dramatic stop right in front of me, and out stepped Ethan Carter, looking like a post-apocalyptic CEO with dirt in his hair, a scruffy beard, and desperation in his eyes as he slammed the door and marched straight to me. Mia Sullivan, you are very good at hiding. And I blinked at him, completely frozen, not because I was shocked to see him, but because I couldn't believe how wrecked he looked, like he hadn't slept in days and had been surviving solely on sheer willpower and espresso. And before I could say anything, he stepped closer and grabbed my wrist, not hard, just enough to stop me from floating away, and whispered, "Come home." And I took a step back like he'd slapped me, because no, I wasn't going to fall for that again. Not after everything, not after Avery, not after being treated like a line item on a family spreadsheet. So I said firmly, Mr. Carter, the sea of bitterness is wide. Perhaps it's time for you to turn your ship around. And he blinked, stunned. What? And I huffed, trying to sound more confident than I felt. You said you wanted me in your heart, but your heart clearly already had someone else, someone tall, beautiful, and 5 years deep into your past. And he stared at me like I'd just grown 3 heads. Who are you even talking about? And I snapped, Avery. Don't play dumb. And he frowned so hard, I swear the earth trembled. Avery is my Southeast Asia business agent. And I squinted. You mean to tell me that beautiful human being isn't your lover? And Ethan looked like he wanted to bang his head into a cactus. Mia, he's my employee. We have a contract. He would sue me into another dimension if I so much as flirted with him. And suddenly the last month of guilt and agony and self-sabotage hit me like a karma truck, and I turned to Chloe with wide eyes. I'm the idiot, and she nodded solemnly. You really are. And I turned back to Ethan, stunned. So all this time you weren't in love with him? And he growled. No. I was looking for you. Every damn day, while you were off in the desert playing fugitive. And I whispered, I didn't know. And his voice dropped, rough and raw. You didn't even give me a chance to explain, and I couldn't breathe because now that I knew he hadn't betrayed me, all the walls I'd built came crashing down, and still, I hesitated, because this wasn't just about us Anna Marie, it was about the life growing inside me. The choices I had to make not just for my heart but for my child. And as if reading my mind, Ethan took a deep breath, reached out gently, and rested a hand over my stomach. "Is there a baby?" And I looked away. "That's just my belly," and he smiled. "Is our baby in there?" And I bit my lip, torn between relief and panic, and just as I was about to nod, Logan muttered from behind us, "The kid's father doesn't seem too bright, should we consider replacing him?" And that did it. Ethan rolled up his sleeves, launched himself at Logan, and the two started wrestling, like toddlers fighting over the last cookie, while Chloe sighed dramatically. "Should we leave? They're clearly under 12 combined," and I couldn't stop laughing even as I yelled, "Break it up. No one's replacing anyone." And eventually we all crammed back into the SUV and drove toward the next town, with Ethan refusing to let go of my hand the whole time, even when I slapped his fingers away for touching my belly like a human sonogram. And by the time we made it back to Riverdale, I was exhausted but at peace, until we pulled into the Carter estate and saw a tall, familiar figure standing by the gates with arms crossed and an expression that said someone's about to get yelled at. And I froze in horror. Oh no! Because standing there like an angry guardian angel from my past was none other than my older twin brother, Jake Sullivan, dressed in black with a look that could kill, and the moment he saw me, he barked, "Get out of the car." And I obeyed like a scolded child while Ethan looked confused and cautious until I muttered, "That's my brother." And Jake stepped forward, eyes sharp as steel. "You sold yourself for a check?" And I shrank into my coat. "It wasn't like that." And he glared at Ethan. "And you, how dare you touch my sister? I don't care how many zeros are in your bank account. You're not marrying her unless I say so." And Ethan looked like he'd been hit with a sledgehammer of awkward respect, because suddenly he wasn't arguing, was nodding, hands up like, "Yes, sir." And just like that, I was dragged away back to the Sullivan household and put on emotional house arrest, with Jake patrolling like a bodyguard and allowing Ethan to visit for exactly 7 hours per day, 10 to 5, no extensions, no sleepovers, no baby talk unless supervised. And the Carter matriarch was losing her mind. "We need a wedding date." And Jake was like, "Let's negotiate." And it took 3 months just to agree on an engagement, and another 3 to get Jake to approve a gift list. But finally, the day was set for early spring, exactly 100 days after the triplets were born. Yes, triplets. I knew my body would go all out, and as I lay in the hospital bed, exhausted but glowing, Mrs. Carter was spinning in circles with joy. The nurse handed me my phone, and I stared in disbelief as a $90 million deposit alert popped up, and I squealed so loudly that Jake stormed in and scolded me like a toddler on sugar. "Have some dignity," and I yelled back, "I earned that money myself," and he shook his head. "You're hopeless," but I could tell he was secretly proud. And the day before the wedding, Ethan and I went to City Hall to register our marriage, and as the clerk stamped the certificate, Ethan grabbed my hand, kissed it gently, and whispered, "I've waited for this for years," and I blinked. "Years," and he smiled. "You don't remember, do you?" And slowly, memories surfaced, being 10, getting lost on my first day in Riverdale, crying under a street lamp, and a tall boy with messy hair and too much confidence handing me a skewer of street food and saying, "Stop crying, I'll treat you, brother, Ethan's got this." And just like that, everything made sense. How we kept finding each other. How he looked at me like I was his fate. I wasn't just a contract, or a partner, or a mother to his children. I was the girl he'd promised his heart to before either of us even knew what love was. If someone had told 10-year-old me, shivering under a street lamp with snot on my face and a meatball stick clutched in my tiny hand, that the tall, arrogant teenager who rescued me would one day become my husband and the father of my 3 gloriously squishy newborn boys, I would have laughed until I choked. But there I was, holding a marriage certificate in one hand and Ethan's warm fingers in the other, still trying to wrap my head around how we went from red silk hostage scenarios to happily ever after, in what felt like a fever dream, and as if the wedding preparations weren't chaotic enough with Mrs. Carter turning the entire Carter estate into a floral war zone, and my brother Jake patrolling every vendor like they were trying to scam us. Our 3 newborn sons, yes, sons. All 3 of them decided that sleeping was for the weak and screaming was their full-time career. So most of my nights were now spent switching between burping, nursing, and negotiating with babies who looked like tiny versions of Ethan but somehow already had Jake's temper, and every time I thought I was finally getting the hang of motherhood, one of them would projectile vomit on a silk curtain or poop mid-diaper change like it was a protest, and yet somehow, despite the exhaustion and the hair, I was sure I was losing in chunks. I was happy in a way I'd never been before, because this wasn't just some rich people fairy tale, it was real. It was messy, and it was mine, and Ethan, for all his CEO swagger and past tantrums, was trying harder than I ever imagined he would, waking up in the middle of the night to change diapers with his hair sticking up like a terrified hedgehog, Googling how to hold a baby without breaking it, and even learning to make bottle formula despite nearly poisoning himself with powdered milk once, and the fact that he insisted on wearing designer suits even during 3 a.m. Feedings was equal parts ridiculous and adorable, and as our wedding day finally approached, the entire city seemed to buzz with anticipation because apparently when the richest family in the country throws a wedding for their heir and his once-hired baby mama-turned-wife, it's basically a royal event, and every influencer, fashion blogger, and wedding magazine had an opinion on my dress, my hair, and whether I was marrying up or Ethan was marrying me, and I couldn't even be mad about it. Because Chloe was living her best PR life, milking every bit of our love story like a TikTok series with 30 million views, and honestly, she deserved it, because if not for her stubborn optimism and chaotic road trip planning, Ethan and I would still be tragically avoiding each other in different time zones. But even with the fairy tale mood building up, I could feel the quiet weight of reality lingering behind the sparkle marriage. Real marriage wasn't a contract or a promise sealed by money. It was trust, compromise, showing up even when things got ugly, and I knew there were still pieces of us, little fragments of misunderstanding and fear, that we hadn't dealt with yet. And the night before the wedding, as I sat in the nursery rocking one of our sons while the others snored in harmony, Ethan came in wearing pajamas and a sheepish look and whispered, "Hey, can we talk?" And I nodded, setting the baby down and following him into the hallway, where he leaned against the wall like a nervous teenager. I want to say this before tomorrow, and I braced myself for something heavy, but instead he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, opened it to reveal a delicate gold necklace with a tiny malatang charm hanging from Itty's. Malatang, the spicy street food we bonded over when we were kids, and my heart instantly clenched as he said, I kept trying to think of the right symbol, the right way to say thank you, and this kept popping into my head, because that day you gave me your meatball, you looked at me like I was your hero, but you were the one who made me feel like I mattered, like I wasn't just a rich kid with expectations glued to his back, and I was already tearing up before he even finished. I want you to know, Mia, I'm not marrying you because of the babies or the family or any obligation. I'm marrying you because I've loved you since the moment you stuffed that meatball into my mouth and told me it tasted better than it looked. And I laughed through the tears and hugged him so tightly I almost knocked the necklace out of his hands, and we stood there for a long time, just holding each other, breathing the same air, finally on the same page after all this time. And the next morning, when the music started, and I walked down the aisle in a white gown that made Mrs. Carter cry, and Jake nearly faint, Ethan looked at me like I hung the damn stars in the sky, and when we said our vows, his voice cracked, and I didn't even care that mascara ran down my face because I meant every word, every breath, every heartbeat, and the moment we were declared husband and wife, the entire Carter estate erupted into applause and champagne fountains and confetti explosions, and somewhere in the crowd, Chloe was screaming, "This is going viral," while Logan rolled his eyes but smiled anyway, and our sons, dressed in tiny tuxedos, slept peacefully in their strollers like they knew this was the start of something big, something forever. And later that night, after the guests left and the lights dimmed and the house finally quieted, Ethan and I curled up on the couch with our babies snuggled between us, and he kissed my forehead and whispered, "You know, this started out as a business arrangement, but it's the best deal I've ever made." And I grinned, resting my head on his shoulder. Yeah? Well, don't forget, I'm the one who closed the deal with triplets. And he laughed so hard he nearly woke the kids, and in that soft, perfect moment, I realized something that hadn't hit me before. Not only had I found love in the most unexpected, ridiculous way, I'd found a family, a future, and a place where I could finally belong without pretending to be anything other than exactly who I was. If I thought the wedding was the grand finale, I clearly underestimated what being married into the Carter family actually meant, because apparently, tying the knot was just the opening act of the billionaire daughter-in-law saga, and the next few months came at me like a whirlwind of public appearances, charity galas, business dinners, and baby photo requests from magazines I didn't even know existed, with Mrs. Carter personally approving every diaper brand and formula company that wanted to sponsor our triplets, who, by the way, had already racked up more endorsement offers than I ever had job interviews in my life. And while I tried to adjust to my new identity as the Carter matriarch in training, juggling feeding schedules and press interviews, and somehow not losing my mind, Ethan kept surprising me with how effortlessly he balanced being a powerful CEO and a surprisingly soft husband, like the way he'd take over baby duty at 3 a.m. without being asked, or how he'd sneak out of meetings to check on me just to ask if I'd eaten, like I wasn't a grown woman capable of microwaving a burrito, and every time I caught him humming lullabies or using baby talk with the boys in that low, gravelly voice, my heart would do this stupid somersault and remind me that yes, this man was once tied to a bed and yelling about personal freedom, but now he was voluntarily changing diapers and memorizing sleep training TikToks like a proud dad on a mission. And honestly, life was good, chaotic, messy, unpredictable, but good in the kind of way that makes you scared it's too good to last, which is why when Ethan came home late one night looking pale and distracted, my stomach dropped before he even said anything, and I braced myself as he sat next to me on the bed, his expression unreadable, and whispered, "Mia, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out completely before you react," which is never a great way to start a conversation unless you're proposing or confessing to a secret twin, and I just nodded, heart pounding, as he continued. "Today, I found out that one of the board members tried to access your medical records without authorization, and the air left my lungs in one sharp exhale because what the hell? Why would they do that?" And he clenched his jaw, because they're trying to question the legitimacy of our marriage and the children, claiming this was all a strategic scheme to infiltrate the Carter fortune. And for a second, I didn't even know how to respond, because even though I married into wealth, even though I'd literally signed a contract at the start of this whole thing, nothing about my love for Ethan or our babies was fake, and the idea that someone could reduce it all to some cold, calculated conspiracy made something primal in me snap, and I stood up, hands trembling but voice steady. "Then let them come, let them try. Because I'm not some gold digger-theory lucky I haven't billed them for the sleep I've lost and the back pain I endure every day just to carry their heirs. And Ethan cracked a smile even through the tension. That's my girl. But I could see the storm brewing in his eyes, and over the next few weeks, we went into full-blown PR defense mode, with Chloe leading the charge like a one-woman army, spinning the narrative back in our favor with interviews, behind-the-scenes footage of our parenting life, and even a viral TikTok where Ethan tried and failed to swaddle a baby using a Gucci scarf. And public opinion quickly turned from suspicion to adoration, with people calling us the modern Malatang royalty, and I thought we'd survived the worst of it until one morning, as I was scrolling through baby monitor footage on my phone, I got a call from the hospital, the same hospital where I delivered the triplets, and my blood ran cold when the nurse said, "Mrs. Carter, we need you to come in immediately. We've discovered a discrepancy in your prenatal files." And my mind jumped to a million worst-case scenarios before I even reached the hospital, dragging Ethan with me, and when the head OB explained what happened, I nearly passed out. There had been a data entry error during my second checkup, and while it hadn't affected the birth, it meant that the official number of embryos detected had been 4, not 3, and Ethan and I stared at her like she'd just spoken in ancient Greek. 4, and she nodded apologetically. "It's rare, but possible. Sometimes one baby can be missed if the scan isn't clear, and in this case, we believe it may have been a vanishing twin scenario where one embryo reabsorbs or delays development." and I couldn't even process what she was saying until she added, except,
It didn't vanish, Mrs. Carter.
the fourth fetus is still viable. You're pregnant again, and I swear I blacked out for a solid 5 seconds, only to wake up with Ethan fanning me with a stack of baby photos while shouting, Mia, wake up, you're about to make history again. And when I finally sat up and registered what she meant, I started laughing like a maniac because of course I was still pregnant, because of course my uterus was on some overachiever timeline, and because of course this family couldn't just have a normal happy ending. We had to have plot twists until the credits rolled, and Ethan was practically glowing as he kissed my hand and whispered, Looks like we're going for round 2, and I shot him a glare that could melt diamonds. Round 2 was never discussed, but he grinned and kissed my forehead. Too late, sweetheart. You're already in overtime. And just like that, our lives turned upside down again with Mrs. Carter nearly fainting from joy, Jake giving Ethan a death stare so intense it broke a wine glass, and Chloe updating our PR campaign with a new tagline, Malatang Mama, the sequel. But this time, I wasn't scared. I wasn't overwhelmed, I was ready, because I wasn't doing it alone anymore. I had Ethan, I had our boys, I had a family that didn't just love me. They fought for me, and as I stood in the nursery one night, staring at the crib we hadn't even taken down yet, I felt a tiny flutter in my belly and smiled to myself, whispering, Hey, little one, we didn't plan you, but you're already part of this chaos. And behind me, Ethan wrapped his arms around my waist and murmured, Our chaos. And I leaned back into him, knowing that no matter what came next, scandals, babies, or boardroom wars, I'd already found my forever.